This week on The Motor Show, we have a festival of sports car exotica from around Europe. From France, I check out the Venturi Atlantique. Ginny Buckley experiences a whole batch of Italian Ferraris, and between us, we check out 3 more unusual British sports cars. Supercar. Even the name, Supercar, can say so much. Since first peering through the pages of a rather cheaply produced book celebrating the art of the supercar, I was captivated, and who wasn't? It's a great idea. Build a car capable of travelling at least 3 times the national speed limit. Pack it full of the most expensive materials money can buy, forget space for luggage or more than one wide-eyed passenger, and let it loose. Superb.
The Italians are very good at it, but then they would be. They manage to look good riding mopeds through streets full of blocked drains. The Germans have produced some pretty hot kit over the years, albeit in a rigidly engineered Teutonic sort of a way. And even us Brits have had a bash at the supercar thing, favouring the massively powerful, hang-on tight and grin-through moustache in the corners sort of approach. But the French? Surely it's all agricultural little runabouts. Well, no, because this is the Venturi Atlantique, and it's as French as a dubious sausage on a bed of garlic.
The supercar arena is not a place where understatement and discretion are widely applauded. Brash, bold and in your face is the way to go. When it's time for a supercar to go home, it's more likely to be to a freshly built mansion with Olympic-sized pool and more concrete lions than Albert could shake a stick at.
Which makes it all the more refreshing to come across the Atlantique. Unusual name that, and whilst it may lack the pedigree of some of its competitors, I reckon it hints at a well-travelled grand touring sort of personality. The kind of personality you're more likely to come across on the deck of a cruise liner than making a big noise in Vegas. It's genteel.
It is beautiful, there's no denying it. Despite the striking appearance, the lines are subtle and understated for a supercar. The Venturi Atlantique can take its rightful place on the great calendar of petrol-powered pin-ups, a sophisticated French beauty, probably somewhere in spring, between a fiery Italian Ferrari summer and the TVR winter warmer.
You can never be too sure what you're going to get inside a supercar, the feigned luxury or a very basic stripped-out racer specification. And in here it is perhaps a combination of both. It's certainly pretty luxurious, more so than some of its competitors, say the Lotus Esprit or even the Porsche 911. There's lots of leather everywhere, lovely deep carpet, plenty of luxury touches and loads of equipment. Perhaps the very symmetrical and rather fussy layout of the dash, though, is a little bit, well, dare I say it, 80s? It's got to deliver, though. It's no good just chilling out and looking cool if some muppet in a GTI can leave you behind. And so Venturi have blessed us with a twin-turbocharged 3-litre V6 lodged behind my left ear. It's powerful enough to launch us from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 5.3 seconds and to continue hauling in the horizon until you hit 174 miles an hour or the brakes. I know which I'm going for first. Interestingly, a milder version of this engine can be found in the Peugeot 406, the Renault Laguna and the Renault Espace. Finding out that your supercar shares its engine with a people carrier must be rather like discovering you wear the same aftershave as Eddie the Eagle Edwards.
We've called it a supercar, and it is a 3-litre V6, gorgeous looks and enough exclusivity to give your neighbours indigestion for a year, and the divine right to buy yourself some silk bedclothes.
But we must all stub the toe of dreams against the chair leg of reality eventually. The Venturi Atlantique is still a supercar. That means hefty running costs, a huge thirst for fuel, no back seats, and quite possibly the very last you'll see of your driving licence. So for most of us, it must remain the stuff of dreams. Let's not forget, £62,000. You can buy a house for that. What could be better than being out in the open countryside and breathing the fresh air? Oh dear. And enjoying some of the simpler pleasures in life. Well, for this week's real life test, we've taken to the countryside to take up some real work. So before we meet our two cars, let's meet our two test drivers.
Our first tester this week is Paul Tyso, a landscape gardener and home improvements expert based in Leeds. Second is Mark Cunningham, a landscape contractor and an aspiring actor. So it's time to ditch those wheelbarrows and take out our new chariots, the Subaru Forester, a new type of off-roader, and Ford's Explorer, a more traditional 4x4. First up is Paul in the Subaru.
I think the car is very good. It's responsive, it drives well, it's comfortable. It's not a bad car to look at. This space, you've got a bit of space. Obviously the rear of the car, the back space is an advantage.
And how's Mark getting on with the Explorer?
This Explorer is a nice one. I did toy with the idea of buying one of these, but I wanted a shorter wheelbase. I don't know about the towing capacity on it, but yeah, it's high enough off the ground, quite a beefy motor, there's quite a bit of room. The seats will drop down at the back. They're made for off-road and not for speed.
OK, so we're pretty much at the halfway mark because you've each been out in one of the cars, so before you go out in the next one, let's get your first impressions of those. We'll start with you, Paul, because you went out first of all in the Subaru. What do you reckon?
I enjoy driving the car. It's a nice car to drive, responsive, very quick. Wouldn't be ideally suited to my line of work, but it was a nice car to drive.
OK, so perhaps not quite perfect, but there are good points there.
Yes, it's a good car.
All right, well, let's turn to you, Mark. You went out in the Ford Explorer. Your first impressions of that?
I think it's a nice looking car and it handles quite good. Yeah, nice vehicle all around.
So it's not disastrous, but maybe you'll each find the perfect vehicle in the other one. So let's do a swap and get out and test those. So, Paul, I'm going to give you the keys to the Ford. I'm going to give you, Mark, the keys to the Subaru. You go and test those, and I'll get out your way, all right?
It's a lot nicer than the other one. It's, you know, traditional 4x4 styling, I suppose, high off the ground. It's a better looking motor car, and I would say it's a bit of a smoother ride. It wouldn't do the work, the carrying capacity that we wanted it, but we would get around that.
As far as getting you out of the mud and things like that, I think it would be all right, but I won't really say on rough terrain because it's more like it's very low to the ground. It's quite a nice little car. It's a nice little drive. I think it'd suit a retired couple actually.
We'll start with you, Paul. You started with the Subaru Forester, moved on to the Ford Explorer, having driven both of them. Which one's for you and why?
The Ford is for me, because the higher elevated position, for me it's a natural 4x4 vehicle. I like the speed of the Subaru, but I think I would go with big is better.
Mark, you started the other way around. You began with the Ford and moved on to the Subaru. For you, which is your favourite?
I like the Ford. I don't dislike the Subaru, but I think, you know, it's very nippy. But the Ford looks more like a four-wheel drive to me, and the Subaru, unfortunately, looks like it belongs with a paramedic.
Yep, I can see that. So for both of you then, it's big is best.
That's
rather
right.
than that extra bit of speed.
That bit of ruggedness, yeah.
I suppose that's the extra practicality. Well, the bad news is, you don't get either of them. It's back to your wheelbarrows for you, I'm afraid, guys. But thanks for your opinions.
Thanks very much.
A Ferrari, well, they reckon it's the ultimate driving experience, don't they? It's just a shame that most of us get the chance to do nothing other than dream about them. Wake up to reality and listen to that engine roar. At the Ferrari Experience, you pay 190 quid, which gets you some expert driving tuition, and then the Speedfest begins. First off the grid, the 355 F1 Ferrari with paddle gear change developed from the F1 racing cars. Shall I start her up?
You do that, yeah.
Wow, it's a nice sound, isn't it, that?
Superb, superb car.
Okay, talk me through these paddle gears, because I've not used these before.
Right, basically you basically don't use your left foot at all.
Okay.
So that's redundant, leave it on that pedal there. So it's all done with your right foot, either braking or accelerating.
Yep.
And then you've got to correspond that with your hands on the pedals. The right pedal there, it's like a little micro switch. It's a very simple operation, a small movement. The right hand pedal takes the gears up, as it says on the pedal, and away you go.
Thank you very much, sir.
Click in the second gear, that's it. Look over your shoulder, check nobody's on the circuit. As you change at the box, just lift on the throttle gradually to make a smoother change, okay?
Okay. A converted airfield is an ideal test track. The hairpins, chicanes, doglegs and home straight are specially designed to test both car and driver. And it's not just about speed and fun, it's also an education into what the cars, and probably more importantly, you are capable of.
Again, just watch the throttle control on the way out. Good exit, good. Nice one.
The 355 plants you firmly in the present. Now it's time to take a blast into the past. Now this one, the 328, is a totally different kettle of fish, isn't it?
Exactly, yes.
You've saved the worst to last for me here.
Yeah, put it back to front really, but it's a nice challenge for you. So you have to be aggressive with it. Basically, it's a driver's car. If you drive it well, you get a lot of satisfaction, but it's not an easy car to drive.
Well, it sounds fantastic.
It sounds lovely.
Great. Let's have a go. Wow, that really different sound.
Feel, completely different cars.
Oh, steering feels straight away a lot heavier.
It does. You'll feel it at the slower corners as well. But on the quicker bits, you feel more in control actually. That's a good gear change. You just have to be precise, slow but forceful with it. That's good.
Again though, it's just got that Ferrari sound. It's amazing, isn't it? The 328 was certainly a more challenging drive. What it lacked in refinement, it makes up for in the sheer pleasure of putting the car through its paces.
That's it, good braking again. Just aim at the cone. Grab second just before we turn in. Good. Good exit. Great. Good throttle control.
Oh, it feels
Testarossa is in the way.
fantastic.
Home safe. Brilliant drive. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. That was fantastic.
A pleasure. Well driven.
It was an excellent day, and there were quite a few people who agreed with me.
Certainly it's been far better value than I was expecting. Far more fun, far more time in the cars. The instructors are great, they're friendly, they're cheerful, but they show you what to do.
The best part is actually coming off the hairpin and going up the straight through the first chicane, about 120, and it is exhilarating, absolutely exhilarating.
After the break, the history of the people's car, the VW Beetle, and Ginny and I administer a severe thrashing to 3 more unusual British sports cars.
The Beetle is back. Nearly 5 decades after we first saw it, VW have decided that so keen is our enthusiasm for their little bug that it's worth a second go with this, the new Beetle. And that enthusiasm over those decades has inspired films and books and events where hundreds or even thousands of people get together to share their love for their little 4-wheel friend.
And here at a BugJam, enthusiasts swarm together to take part in a few days of homage and mutual appreciation of the people's car. The Beetle certainly has had a bizarre history, a concept conceived by Adolf Hitler whilst in prison in the 1920s, and mainly designed by the legendary Ferdinand Porsche in the 1930s. Anyway, back to the BugJam. All these cars, all these loving owners, just what is it about these cars that creates such emotion?
You just need to look at it. It's a beautiful shape, it's got so much character, there's nothing else on the road like it.
Why the Beetle? It's a way of life. There's no other car like it. You can't explain it when you go to the shows. It's just a phenomenal feeling.
This car owes me a fortune, yeah. It owes me about £10,000.
Is it worth it?
Oh yeah, every penny.
And even Elvis drove one. Well, he didn't actually, but it is a chance for us to show these bizarre people on BugJam Party Night. And celebration is what ownership of a VW Beetle is all about, and has been through the ages. Let me try to illustrate. now, it's the 90s and this is the new Beetle. And okay, you're probably never going to accuse it of being the people's car, certainly not with the price tag that it has. But maybe it does have the cachet that's needed for today's young professional, who doesn't want the fun-loving 70s or the austerity of the 50s. Either way, one thing you can't get away from, the Beetle is still cute. Think of British sports cars and there's always a few brands that spring to mind. Today we've gathered together 3 of the industry's smallest, most specialised and most challenging brands. First up, from the Wiltshire-based manufacturer that boasts 100 car sales a year and competes in the national GT circuit, the Marcus Montaray. Then, from a vintage factory in the beautiful Malvern Hills, the Morgan Plus8, built using vintage methods. In just 10 to 12 weeks, it's not surprising there's a 6-year waiting list for this instant classic.
And last but by no means least, this astonishing little road-going racer from Westfield. It's appropriately nicknamed the Animal, but it's more officially known as the S8.
Marcus seem to believe in evolution rather than revolution, and the Montaray is no exception to this rule. They've decided to trade in the infamous and frankly ugly hindquarters of the previous Montara for a more conventional tail, which now matches the aggressive snout. There's a satisfying air of quality about the interior that you notice straight away, and there are some nice touches too, such as you don't mess about dragging the seat forwards to get to the pedals. You simply reach under the dashboard, press a button, and electronically bring the pedals to you. Very nice. Put down and the wind noise is kept to a minimum, but let's face it, if you're driving this in the UK, you'll be cruising with the lid on, which isn't quite as enjoyable. Inside, most of the switchgear is Ford sourced, so it's hardly bespoke in here, but it's sensibly laid out and well fitted, and everything else is either made of wood or covered in leather, as it should be. So, the Montaray comes in at £35,995, and it can trace its heritage straight back to the racetrack, which means it's incredibly good fun to drive. And it's not difficult to see that Marcus have TVR very much in their sights with this car, and I reckon they stand a good chance. So what do we make of Morgan's offering? Well, straight away, it couldn't be much more different. Hello there. Don't try leaping in this thing or you will injure yourself, but once you've actually got in, it feels just right. There's plenty of room, even for lanky drivers. It's got a superb, enormous upright steering wheel and a stubby gear lever barely inches away. And if you add to that the optional leather, the mohair hood and the walnut dash, well, you could be settling back in your great-aunt's boudoir. I just need the ticking of the grandfather clock. Sports cars bearing the Morgan name have been crafted within the same walls for more than 70 years. The unique vintage character provides the appeal, but the Plus8 is more compelling than just that. It has 8 cylinders crammed underneath that long louvered bonnet that stretches for furlongs in front of you. It may look like a quaint old lady, but don't let that fool you. Think of it as your granny, with a machine gun.
This is the Westfield S Eight, and the only way to describe this car is an absolute beast. Now this is as close as you'll ever get to one of those go-karts down at your local track. It weighs little more than a Mini, but is powered by an incredible engine, a 3.9 litre V8 that's been borrowed from Rover, that produces a whopping 270 brake horsepower. Get your foot down, you feel every single one of them pumping through this car. It's an incredible feeling, and it's possibly the closest thing you'll get to experience what being struck by a bolt of lightning is like.
The Westfield's appeal runs far deeper than just being packed with power, because it handles well too, and it won't punish you for over-enthusiasm. The only punishment you're likely to suffer is it's your wallet, because you'll become very good friends with your petrol station attendant.
Our other criticism is slight concerns about the build quality. But remember, this is back to basics motoring. These cars are produced in very small numbers, so you're not going to get the same kind of build quality and engineering as you would in a mass-produced vehicle.
The only thing these cars have in common is a hard-charging V8 engine.
Their characters, however, couldn't be more different.
Which means there will probably be only one that suits you.
Well, it would be a dull world if we're all the same now, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Can I have the Morgan then?
Quite fancy the Marcus.
Yeah.
I wonder what that says about us.
Next week on The Motor Show, Ginny Buckley's off to Los Angeles for a first drive of the BMW Z8. Two lorry drivers ditch their big rigs in favour of hot hatches. And which mini MPV has the biggest appeal?